Dana White recently took to social media where he proceeded to scream into the camera at the top of his lungs while turning his face entirely pink to let us know that the UFC will be delivering one of, if not the greatest fight night card of all time. And it is going down July 26th in Abu Dhabi, and this card is absolutely loaded. This is one of, if not, like I said, the greatest fight night card that we've ever seen, dude. These fights are absolutely crazy. This is a pay-per-view. At this point in 2025 here, this card outdoes almost every pay-per-view, if not all of them, but almost every pay-per-view that we've had this year. Look at this compared to UFC 316. You mean to tell me that this fight night's not better than UFC 316? Oh, but Jake, there's a belt on the line between Merab and O'Malley. It was an undeserved title shot for Sean O'Malley, right? So when the titles are on the lines, we're not even always getting the right matchups that are supposed to be happening. So half the time, we're all just complaining about an undeserved title shot. So the belt has lost its significance, in my opinion. This fight night card is absolutely loaded. It's absolutely stacked. We have a great main event between Robert Whittaker and RDR, right? Because everyone's high on RDR right now. They're like, whoa, dude, he just went out there and beat up on Bo Nickel. And turns out Bo Nickel just ain't that good, dude. Like, he lacks the skill. He's undersized at middleweight. There is a list of issues on the side of Bo Nickel, and I was kind of surprised by that, right? But RDR, this dude is incredibly game. Coming over for one championship, and he's just looking like a real problem, right? He's big for the weight class and all these different things, but slow your roll, dog. Like, slow your roll. This dude, people are talking about RDR like, whoa, man, he's Chimaev back in, when he was running through everybody when he first busted onto the scene. I don't forget. This dude went out there, made GM3 look like a glory kickboxer before he was able to submit him later in the fight. Yeah, he went out there and dominated Kevin Holland. We know Holland can't grapple at 185. And okay, so he goes out there and exposes Bo Nickel for the fraud that he is. But now you're getting thrown in there with Robert Whittaker? Like, RDR has never fought anybody as good as Robert Whittaker. He's never even fought a striker basically as good as Robert Whittaker. Robert Whittaker has excellent takedown defense. He's fast. He is going to be the most dynamic striker and the fastest one I think RDR's faced. Right? And I get that he went out there and destroyed Bo Nickel. This RDR is not Khamzat Chimaev. Like, people are talking about RDR now like, whoa, because he beat up on Bo Nickel. Slow your roll, man. Slow your roll. Now, if he goes out there and melts Robert Whittaker, which there's a possibility because RDR is a big dude and Robert Whittaker is bullyable, right? You can march forward, you can back him up against the fence, land those knees in close, take him down, and if RDR is able to get a hold of you, it can be a real problem. But I'm leaning Whittaker right now, and I know a lot of people out there are so high on RDR. He went out there and he beat up on Bo Nickel, and I get it. But slow your roll, man. You're going from beating up on a prospect that was overhyped in Bo Nickel to being thrown in there with one of the greatest middleweights we've seen. And a guy that's still got it in Robert Whittaker. Right? So, I mean, it's a great main event. Stylistically, super intriguing main event. And how badass is Robert Whittaker always stepping up to the plate against the hard opposition. And then we have a serious issue on this card that we're going to talk about in a minute, which is Movsar Evloev versus Aaron Pico. This is a banger of a matchup. There's no question about it. It's a great fight. It is going to be 5 rounds, and it's going to be a fun fight. But, this fight should not be happening. It absolutely should not be happening. We'll talk a little bit about that in just a minute. But we also have Petr Yan versus Marcus McGhee, which this is another fight that shouldn't be happening, right? But Petr Yan saying, I want to be active. I don't want to wait till the fall. Maybe they were looking at him versus Umar or something like that. And look, Petr Yan's as game as it gets. Everybody loves Petr Yan. He's a technical wizard out there. He's an unbelievable striker and incredibly well-rounded. If he goes out there and beats up on Marcus McGhee like I think he will, this man has earned a title shot without question. And Marcus McGhee, he's been on a tear since coming into the UFC. He's got good power. He's a solid striker. I think that this dude is biting off more than he can chew. The only thing that concerns me is the fact that it's 3 rounds. If it was 5 rounds, it'd be a Petr Yan one-sided ass whooping. He would absolutely beat the shit out of Marcus McGhee over the course of 25 minutes. But the fact that it's 15, that's what scares me, because we see how Yan gets off to these slow starts, and these guys that got power and are a little bit dynamic, especially early, they tend to kind of freeze him to where he tends to operate very slow, start to build his reads, and he could get behind on the scorecards. But it's an unbelievable fight. is an unbelievable fight. Bryce Mitchell going down to bantamweight. I think that's a disaster waiting to happen. He's going in there against a very game opponent, Said Nurmagomedov. Give me Said all day long. I think Bryce Mitchell is just shit at this point, to be honest with you. I think that he's kind of figured out. He's awful on the feet. He does have a solid ground game. I think that he's going to be very tall for this weight class, obviously at 5'10". I think Said Nurmagomedov is better than him. Flat out better than him. Right? And then we have Shar Magomedov versus Marc-Andre Barrieu. That's a fun fight, dude, right? Because Shar Magomedov is coming off of that fight to MVP to where he just got kind of picked and poked around, and now he's coming back against Marc-Andre, who just went out there and crushed the skull of Bruno Silva. Right, so Marc-Andre's got some hype behind him right now, right? So that there's kind of this intrigue of, man, we've seen if you can close down Shar a bullet and, get to the inside, you can cause this guy some problems. So I think that's actually a very interesting fight. And then we have Nikita Krylov versus Bogdan Guskov. And by the way, I'm leaning towards Shar a bullet in that. But Nikita Krylov versus Bogdan Guskov, I mean, these two dudes, all they do is finish fights. Right, so this is an absolute banger of a matchup. Someone's getting knocked out probably in the first round. I think that it's going to be very interesting to see how Bogdan does with the step up in competition here. And then Krylov is coming off of that devastating KO loss to Dominic Reyes. Very, very interesting fight. This card is loaded. This is an amazing main card, dude. Without question, right? But we have something to talk about here, right? We get the card difference issue and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's great, right? Because they're fight nights and, they're free. You could go on and watch them. But then it's like, why even get the pay-per-views anymore? Like, if the fight nights are going to be so loaded out, which is awesome. And I know every time we go to Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi, we're going to get these amazing cards. So I'm always looking forward to these events. So I absolutely love this event. I'm super excited for that. But I just wish that the pay-per-views were more beefy, man. Like UFC 317, 318, 319, like they're lacking. They have outstanding main events, but that's kind of what the card hype is riding on, right? But let's talk about this right here. Movsar Evloev versus Aaron Pico has been booked. And there were rumors that this fight was going to happen. And, I came on and made a video and I'm like, the UFC is trying to set up Movsar Evloev here. That is absolutely what is happening. Now, you could sit on two sides of the fence here. You could be like, well, they're doing Movsar a favor. They're putting him in there with a guy that's guaranteed fireworks in Aaron Pico to where it can put some excitement behind the name of Movsar Evloev that people out there feel is lacking. But that ain't the case, man. That is absolutely not the case. This might be a little bit of double dipping on the side of the management, right? That's something to also consider. But this is absolute bullshit that this fight is happening. It's a banger of a fight, don't get me wrong. Movsar Evloev should be fighting for the title. He should absolutely be fighting for the title against Alexander Volkanovski next. Volk said that he wants to fight Movsar. Everyone in the MMA world basically wants to see Movsar fight for the title. That's the fight to make. But nope, they're going to probably give Yair Rodriguez an undeserved title shot after he went out there, has lost numerous fights, goes in there, okay, so he beat up an older, washed Patricio Pitbull. Good job, Yair. We're going to give you a title shot off that. Have you go in there and fight Volkanovski again, the fight that nobody asked for. So now we're at this, right? Movsar wants to stay active, and this just seems to me it's a 5-round co-main event where the UFC is like, you're going to need to go out there and show us. And this is going to be an unbelievable fight. And Movsar Evloev is going to dominate Aaron Pico, man. I know Aaron Pico is dangerous, and of course, there is the chance, which is why it feels like a little bit of a setup to me, which I've said before. Aaron Pico has a wrestling background. He has good wrestling of his own, and he does have dangerous power, man. He is an explosive striker, and I've compared him to a more technical, calculated Michael Chandler. Right? If Michael Chandler fought smart, right? He fights like an absolute idiot. If he was more contained, more dialed in, and was a little bit sharper, that to me looks like Aaron Pico. This is a dangerous fight in a way for Movsar because Movsar has nothing to gain. He has absolutely nothing to gain and almost everything to lose, right? And this matchup, it comes down to the fact that I think that Movsar Evloev is very underrated striking. I think he could go out there and strike with Aaron Pico. Movsar's finished fights before prior to getting to the UFC, but his issue is he hasn't finished, I don't think he's finished any in the UFC thus far. And so people are like, he's boring, man. Movsar's boring, man. Dude, he's not boring, dude. He's not boring. His fight against Aljamain Sterling, super entertaining. His fight against Arnold Allen, entertaining. Fight against Diego Lopez, entertaining. He's been in some crazy entertaining fights, dude. Super high pace. Like, super high output. Crazy scrambles. Yeah, they're not ending in finishes, but they're still entertaining. A fight doesn't have to end in a finish for it to be entertaining, at least in my opinion. Right? I mean, in him versus Volkanovski, that's a crazy fight. Because I don't think that he just takes Volk down and controls him. I think he has to stand in front of Volkanovski, and that's where it's like, man, Volk's really good there, right? How's Movsar going to do if he's forced to stand for 25 minutes? That might be what happens in this fight. Feels like the UFC is like, show us. Go out there, beat this dangerous guy from another promotion who, by the way, who the fuck is Aaron Pico beat? Who is this guy beat? Right? I mean, he got starched and finished, I think, by Adam Borics, right? Which is like the only name, one of the only names I recognize on his resume. This dude is so overrated, dude. I know he's exciting. He just seems like a Chandler who's going to come over. Maybe he gets lands a shot here or something like that. I don't see it happening. Aaron Pico sure will be a fun fighter here. Movsar Evloev is a way better overall fighter than him. I think Movsar can outstrike him on the feet. He will chain the wrestling together. He will wear on Aaron Pico, drag him into the later rounds. And I think Movsar gets a finish in this fight. I think he's going to come in pissed off, feeling like he's done dirty by the UFC, because he absolutely is. This is what we saw the UFC do to Merab. It's what we saw them do to Bilal. It's what they did to Magomed Ankalaev. They prolong these guys that are boring, right? Which these guys have very hard styles to deal with. And they're not boring. Bilal just went out there and put on an amazing fight against Jack Della Maddalena. Even though he didn't win, dominated Leon Edwards. Right? Magomed Ankalaev is going out there outstriking guys, and people are like, oh, he's a grappler, he's boring. Magomed Ankalaev ain't boring. Just outstruck Alex Pereira, almost knocked his ass out. Outstruck him in that fight, right? And Merab running through everybody. Guy's a freak of nature. And now people are starting to recognize kind of the talents of Merab, and he does go in there and emote and move around. Woohoo, right? This is BS. It's absolute bullshit. We all know it. It should be Movsar versus Volkanovski. This feels dirty to me by the UFC, and the fact that the management is allowing this to happen is crazy to me. Unless there's a conversation behind the scenes, it's like, look, we need Movsar to go out there. He doesn't have any finishes. We want to put him in a 5-rounder, big spotlight, big card. Go out there in a 5-rounder and show us. Go out there, beat Aaron Pico. You get a finish. You're next in line. But the problem, Dana White says likely next. That's the key word in his announcement. Movsar is likely next. So there's no guarantee. And I told you guys when this happened, right? It was the rumors that this fight was going to happen. I reacted. Then it was, again, came around again that this fight is going to happen. And I had said, this feels like a setup, man. And I knew that it wasn't the end of it when it was like, it kind of died off. And it was like, maybe Movsar is going to fight Volk. And then we saw Yair beat Patricio. And he's like, UFC guaranteed me a title shot. And then I'm like, how could the UFC guarantee this dude a title shot? Yair, I'm talking about, right? Movsar Evloev is an elite fighter. He absolutely is. He has an elite skill set. The problem is the UFC will hold not finishing fights against you. It's clearly what they do, man. We have seen that time and time again, and it's crazy because this isn't some guy that's just laying on people for 15 minutes and winning these boring-ass fights. Yeah, they're going to decision, but they are action-packed, dude. They're action-packed, and I think he finishes Aaron Pico here in the mid to later rounds. I do. I think in like the 3rd, 4th round, maybe even in the 5th, we start to see him just kind of melt Pico, put the pressure on him, chain the wrestling together, land some good ground and pound, and get the ref to step in and stop it. That's what I'm predicting. A Movsar Evloev finish. And then he will be undeniable for the title shot next. This is what's happening in the UFC, man. I feel like this is what's dampening pay-per-views too. They're not loading up the cards, but they're not booking the right title fights, dude. Like, why is Movsar not fighting for the title right now? He absolutely should be fighting for the title. And now he's got to take a big risk here against Aaron Pico. Like I said, he doesn't hold a candle to Movsar. Sure, maybe he's got more danger when it comes to the striking, but Movsar is head and shoulders above Aaron Pico in terms of the level. He is, and we're seeing that, man. And in the UFC, this is something that we need to start talking about, right? I know that this is a topic that's more common now. This Bellator and PFL privilege, man. It's a thing. It is a real thing because we're seeing these guys come over and, yeah, they got these names and these other promotions, but what the fuck have you done in the UFC? Right, some of these guys, and listen, I was a fan of Michael Chandler before coming over. Well, I'm still a fan of Chandler, a fan of Michael Venom Page, right? These guys come over, Patricio Pitbull, I know who they are. I've watched their fights in other promotions, but how in the world do these guys just get to come in and fight a ranked guy right off the rip? Especially a top contender. Like Aaron Pico is literally fighting Movsar, and Movsar should be fighting for the title. Like, to me, that is the worst one out of all of them. Out of all of the PFL Bellator privilege that we have seen, Aaron Pico versus Movsar is the worst booking. It is. It's the most horrendous one because Movsar should be fighting for the title. He's on a crazy win streak. He's unbeaten. But the UFC's like, nah, you got to prove it against a guy that's never fought in our promotion. I mean, what is this shit, dude? Like, Michael Chandler, super fun, right? We know he's going to go out there, he's going to leave it all on the line, but he gets to fight Dan Hooker in his debut, and granted, he did get the knockout. Then he gets thrown into a title fight against Oliveira. I mean, what have you done in the organization? Oh, I'm not here for a long time. I'm here for a good time. Well, you know how many other fighters on the roster that are in the rankings or trying to bust into the rankings that have put together a nice resume? They've been there for a long time and they kind of have the same feeling, but because you're from some other promotion, we're just going to roll out the red carpet and throw you right in? Like, and Michael Venom Page, his wasn't necessarily as bad because they gave him Kevin Holland, which I think Kevin Holland was like, ranked 15 or something at that point. So it was like, okay, that's not so bad. Patricio Pitbull, like, and I understand, like, especially when you're a former champion, it's like the UFC almost maybe wants to prove a point by throwing you in there being like, haha, PFL, Bellator, you guys ain't shit compared to us. And they're not, right? And we're seeing that. So the MVP one, not so bad. Chandler, get a former champion, but Hooker off the bat, and then Patricio gets to go in there against Yair. And then now Yair's floating on cloud nine, and the UFC's gassing up Yair like he's some sort of world beater now because he beat up an older Patricio Pitbull. That's the problem. And then we saw Patchy Mix, right? And again, a little bit of a pass possibly there because it was short notice. It was supposed to be Cheeto Vera, and they called up Patchy Mix. They're like, bring, listen, man, you want to step in? You want your shot? And he fights, I think, what was he, number 8 ranked Mario Bautista? Or number 10, whatever. This is ludicrous, man. This has to stop, and it's not going to. Right? And if the UFC's just doing it to try to show levels and punk the other promotions and whatever, but taking the number 10 rank, a guy, no, he's not even ranked, Aaron Pico, making his debut in the UFC, dog, who's beaten essentially nobody outside of the promotion, gets to make his debut against Movsar Evloev, a guy that should be fighting for the title that's unbeaten. He beat Aljamain Sterling. He beat Arnold Allen. He beat Diego Lopez, who just fought for the belt. Like, this is crazy, dude. Bellator PFL privilege is a real thing in the UFC. This is something that we have got to start pushing back on, man. This is craziness. And I don't believe people, Jake, man, listen, they're just trying to show that the UFC's better by throwing these guys in there. Really? Well, because Chandler went in there and KO'd Hooker and they threw him in for a vacant title fight against Oliveira. It's craziness, dude. Absolutely craziness. Now, MVP, that's the one where I'm like, listen, he's kind of got the flash, he's got the style, and if any of them, if you told me that anyone was going to get the, the privilege, I could see it being MVP because of his style, right? There's not many guys out there like an MVP that we've really ever seen in the history of MMA, right? But these other fighters, like, stop doing this, UFC. Stop giving these guys a top 5 opponent or top 10 or whatever off the rip, especially when the guy should be fighting for the title of Movsar Evloev. Hopefully Movsar goes out there, handles business, beats up on Aaron Pico because it's a big risk, man. He essentially gains almost nothing from it, while Aaron Pico, make no mistake about it, if he goes out there and starches Movsar Evloev, I wouldn't be surprised if the UFC brass is over there with a standing ovation. Woohoo! Well done, Aaron Pico. They'll give him a fight of the night bonus. They'll give him a $10,000. They'll give him a $10 million bonus if he can knock out Movsar Evloev. That's what this feels like to me. But we've seen when the UFC does this, when they deny guys like Ankalaev, Bilal, Merab, they give them the runaround. Guys are inevitable, man. And I'm telling you, I think Movsar Evloev is going to go in there. He's going to show level. He's going to beat up on Aaron Pico. I think he gets his first finish. I believe that would be his first finish in the UFC. It's been in some entertaining fights. It's a shame that the UFC's giving him the runaround. We knew it was coming. I called this a while ago, and now that we get to hear Dana say likely, dude, even if Movsar dominates and it's a decision, I just feel like they're going to try to find every excuse, man, because I can see the writing on the wall. They're going to try to book John Silva versus Diego Lopez, and if Silva KOs Lopez, even if Movsar wins this fight, say it's by decision, you mean to tell me that they're not going to try to book John Silva for the title next? That's what I was saying before, man. This is scary time here for Movsar. I hope he gets it done. I hope he wins. I'm rooting for him to get it done. I think he beats up on Aaron Pico at UFC Fight Night Abu Dhabi. But if you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Let me know what you think down in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you do not miss an upload. I would appreciate it. See you next time.